All right, welcome to Tech Talk Thursday. And the rule of thumb is that if you are going to start a live stream, then make sure your software tool of choice is set to stream and not just record. So there's nothing like a false start for a Thursday. I can see Martin just shaking his head in despair, saying, this guy, all he has to do is press buttons. Isn't this a repeat of last week? It seemed like that. Anyway, hopefully we won't have any audio or crazy issues as we had last week. Today, we're going to be talking about our favorite AI tools. We've got a special guest with us as well, so we're going to have some fun going through some of the things that we use on a sort of a daily, weekly basis. Keeps us sane and also stops us going crazy with overwhelming workflows. So first off, let's bring on Mr. McKenna, and hopefully you can all hear him, and you're not going to hear him twice. Hello, Martin. How's it going?
So this is week number 3, audio trying.
I think we're working.
Mine never changes. So let's hope we're working. The audience can tell us if we're not. But yeah, welcome everybody. And I'm not sure about not going crazy with AI. I think I'm going to certainly go crazy with AI. But it is all about workflows. So we're going to do a little bit about workflows across different tools and why we use the different tools. And we're going to bring on our special guest, Sam, who's been working for us for the last 2 months as an intern. It's his first year in university studying AI, and he also happens to be my nephew. But everybody, here's Sam.
Hello.
Welcome to the
second
show.
Year.
Second year in university.
Second year. Oh, right. So,
Yeah.
how was that first year? It flew by, obviously.
It did, yeah. It wasn't specialized in AI, but it was still interesting, just doing the basics.
So anybody who lives near Sam in France and who has a job in AI, do let us know, because he's looking for a placement for next year, and there's not enough AI companies near where he lives, which is relatively near Nantes, if we're looking at big places, I guess. So yeah, on the off chance, we may as well mention it anyway.
Absolutely, why not?
Yeah, why not? So we started off with Sam, asking him to basically up his connections on LinkedIn, because we wanted to be discussing LinkedIn, and maybe let Sam go live on LinkedIn at some point by himself, and you need 150 contacts to do that. So the first thing we did was, Sam is already very familiar with ChatGPT, so we asked him to get ChatGPT to suggest a few invitation bits of text, so he could drop invitations out to people, get connections. And before we knew it, Sam had got a heap of connections, so surpassed the required number very, very quickly, in less than a week, I think. Then we decided we would get Sam to start looking at the training course we'd done on going live on LinkedIn. And so we asked Sam to have a look through the training course and to give us a bit of feedback on that. So we took Sam through the training course, and part of the training course was looking good on camera. And Neil, perhaps you want to jump in there on what we did with Sam in terms of AI and looking good on camera.
Yeah, so so Sam had built out his studio with the help of Martin, and basically set it up best he could. And what we decided to do was see if AI could critique what Sam's overall look and feel was with regards to his camera setup and lighting. And it came up with some good suggestions. It was talking about framing, it was talking about the different lighting conditions, maybe different suggestions on how to maybe even change a few things in the background. And it actually showed some little elements, some practical lighting and some practical, I think it was a plant pot or something like that, it put in the back, and a few photographs and things, just to make the studio look a little bit better. So then we sort of used that workflow in a couple of live shows, because that was a good idea. If AI could actually do something for Sam, then maybe it could do something for other people. And we just took a bunch of photographs from the internet and looked at how it could change the look and feel to get you out of that sort of typical Zoom setup and things like that. So it was good fun, and yeah, thanks to Sam for doing that. And the setup is really good that Sam has at the moment, and you're using minimal equipment and basically some interesting lighting, and I know, Martin, you sort of jimmy rigged, for want of a better term, some way of connecting his lighting and microphone together and stuff like that. So that was quite fun.
Yeah, we have a stand which is designed for an iPad really, but has a comfort monitor on it. So when Sam's looking at the camera, the comfort monitor's sitting behind the camera. But yeah, hopefully there won't be any earthquakes or anything like that, because I think it might wobble around quite significantly.
It's just a way of connecting stuff. What can you do, right? You have to make do with what you've got.
But it works. For the moment, it works.
Indeed.
So tonight, I think Sam's going to talk a little bit about AI and his experiences with using it for programming, which I know nothing about really. And I think Neil's going to talk about a variety of different tools, but also a variety of different AI models. So as most people will know if they're watching, it's not just ChatGPT. I tend to use ChatGPT a lot. And the primary reason for that is that ChatGPT now, with my $20 a month paid plan, stays open. So what I mean is that the conversation stays open. So I can have a very long conversation with ChatGPT and it's still there each time I go back. And there's a number of different conversations I can jump in between. Some of the other platforms I've found, certainly on the free plans, will give you a fixed period of conversation and then it kind of closes down and forgets everything you've said to it. So for me, ChatGPT is very useful for that particular function specifically. That's why I like ChatGPT. What is your current favorite, Neil? And you can do a comparison a bit later, but
yeah. So for most of my writing and just because a lot of the thing I'm doing at the moment is either helping to create services, building some services out for myself, trying to do some creative writing, all those kinds of things. And the best tool I've found at the moment for me anyway, it gives me the good results, is Claude. So Claude is from Anthropic and it's been around for a while, but they've added more and more things to it recently, which I'll talk about if we have time a little bit later, about some integrations with Google Drive and Gmail and things like that. So I'm just finding it writes better for me in terms of my voice and my tone, but you can pretty much do similar things in GPT. And as we spoke about before the show, all the tools are there to do various different workflows and things, and some will do things better than others. And if you give them all the same prompt, you are going to get different responses. So it all depends on which tools that you use. But I guess we'll start off with maybe Sam's experience in what he's been doing with GPT and maybe why you selected GPT over some of the others. And, are you using the free GPT account or are you using paid? And maybe some of the things that you found that doesn't work terribly well with GPT at the moment. So maybe if you want to take it away, I'll just say a quick hello to Saeed first, if this comes up. Hello from Germany. Hello, Saeed. Yes, hopefully you're not too warm over there at the moment. So, Sam, if you want to maybe just take it away and talk a little bit about ChatGPT and your experiences.
Yeah, so I use ChatGPT all the time because I study in AI, and most of the stuff that I study is doing practical coding experiences and tests and building in basic AIs and such. And so I tried to select ChatGPT first, one, because it was the most famous one, so it's the first one that came up. But it's also because, as Martin said, it remembers the conversations. And that's really, really handy when you're coding, because you can give it an example, and for the next few times you chat with it, it'll sort of remember what you told it and try and adapt the code to your liking. So that's the main reason I use it, but it's also really handy for research. Because for some reason or another, with a friend of mine, we decided to have a look at a different AI library using Python. And most people use TensorFlow or PyTorch, which are the big two libraries for making basic AIs in Python, or not only basic ones, but anyway. And we decided that we could try Neat AI because we saw it in a YouTube video and thought that could maybe be suitable for what we were trying to do. Turns out there were no documents online at all, no documentation about how to use it and what the keywords are to code with it. Not even our teachers had heard of it before. And so we had to ask ChatGPT, and it gave us the list of everything we needed to use. And that's really, really useful for us in coding.
So you basically use ChatGPT to give you the instructions to use the other tool in order to support you. That's cool.
Exactly, yeah. So it gives us the documentation that it found out somehow or another. I don't really know.
Right. And did you, was there a reason why you chose, I mean, you mentioned ChatGPT because obviously it's the most popular. You mentioned also your instructors and your teachers. Are they people that use ChatGPT as well, or have they got another variety of tools that they select, or have they recommended that as well for other people?
I have a lot of teachers who are very much into AI, and most of them use ChatGPT also. They've also had a look at DeepSeek more recently and said that it's a great alternative and it's completely free. Plus, you know what happens with DeepSeek because it's open source.
Yeah.
But sometimes the answers aren't as well explained as ChatGPT, so a lot of the teachers try and stick with ChatGPT.
Right. And I think it does depend largely on the learning model, right? So obviously every LLM, the large language model, is based on what is available in terms of what it can consume in order to read and then understand and then regurgitate back to you and so on. And I think DeepSeek, from what I understand, because it's obviously Chinese, two things. One, it doesn't have the same compute power as GPT because it's running on old NVIDIA chipsets, which are a couple of years older than the ones that are being used currently within the ChatGPT's server farm. And then the model that it's been trained on, if you believe Sam Altman, who's Sam Altman, the main man at GPT, was like, well, it was trained on our model. So, it's stolen all our information, which I do find quite funny because ChatGPT basically has been given all the information from the internet that we created anyway. But anyway, that aside, I think there are obviously some nuances, some differences between what is available in DeepSeek. I do find, though, to your point, that DeepSeek can give you some more thorough, deep research results over and above what ChatGPT can do. But again, I feel like we're in this sort of leapfrogging situation at the moment where, the best one will come along and then something else will leapfrog it as well. I mean, what are your thoughts on sort of how, in your experience over the last few months and so on, how things have changed just by working within the AI environment? I mean, you must see things pop out every day almost now.
Yeah, lots of stuff pops out every day because at first when I started using AI, it was really just ChatGPT. And then we, for example, we discovered Black Box AI. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. And it's an AI where you take a picture of it, for example, with your phone, and then it scans the document and tells you whatever you need to know from the picture. And ChatGPT is awful at that. Right. And so that's when we started realizing that there's more and more specifications of GPTs or such, or there's AIs that are really specialized in certain domains.
Right.
And from that point, there's just been new ones coming out every single week.
So Martin,
I think
go ahead.
I was going to say, a very recent one that I've just heard about really through keeping an eye on blogs from Charlie Hills, who will be a guest with us in October time, but is an AI specialist and is always on LinkedIn. There's a new one called Stanley, and that seems to be focused on producing content on LinkedIn and analysing content on LinkedIn across all of the platform and producing effectively a schedule of content for you, but then monitoring how effective the content is and then suggesting changes to you as it goes along, purely knowing that it's all about posting on LinkedIn. So that the AI is using effectively an LLM, which is all about LinkedIn and reactions and performance and things like that. So that looks interesting. Haven't, amongst all the other tools I've been playing with, not had a chance to look at that one yet because there's just not been enough time in the day. So I think I might need to feed ChatGPT with loads and loads of information, then ask it which one I should be looking at and see whether it says don't bother looking at ChatGPT anymore. It's yesterday's news.
Asking ChatGPT to sort of do itself out of a job. I was going to ask you, Sam, have you played then with any of the actual GPTs within ChatGPT? So, these GPTs are specific models that do a targeted function. So they're not like a widespread, give it a couple of questions and it has to go and figure it out. You're basically training that GPT on something specific. There's quite a few good ones that I've used, which I can go into later. I'm just wondering if you've used them specifically for coding? Because I know there are specific ones that are out there for coding as well.
I personally have just tried one for mathematics because we tried using a bit of math that we were working on in the lesson with a friend of ours, and tried asking ChatGPT that exact problem. It got the problem completely wrong. It was really rubbish at maths, and we could do it in our heads really easily. And we're
Right.
not very, very good in maths.
Right.
And it was just really bad. So we decided to use a GPT specialized in maths, and it was a lot better.
Interesting.
But a friend of mine who's big into programming, he uses a sort of code specialized ChatGPT,
Right.
and that seems to work really well for big projects and such. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that ChatGPT plus there's Claude and all of them now allow you to have project-based workflows within ChatGPT. So you create your project, you give it a bunch of documents, as Martin suggested before about talking about what LLM to use. But in all seriousness, you could give it all this information around, let's say, LinkedIn or whatever it might be, optimizing LinkedIn, for example. And then that would be that project just specifically for that. Is that something that you use in your day-to-day as well with regards to coding? I guess if you're doing different coding projects, you might be splitting those up into different projects as well. Just interested about your workflow.
I should.
Okay.
I don't do that yet, no.
Right.
Because
It's
a
all
lot
in
of
one
the
big
projects
chat,
we do, we
right.
try to do from scratch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the
Try
problem as
to
well.
code from scratch. So yeah, we just ask ChatGPT one specific problem that we have, like, I
Yeah.
have an error in this line. Explain to me why I have this error. But then it corrects us, and then we continue working ourselves. But if I
Right.
was wanting to do something big and fast, then I would probably just create a separate ChatGPT for that one project.
Yeah, that makes sense. One quick
I'll
question
tell you
about.
what I'm thinking
sorry.
is.
Go ahead.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking now, just off the cuff, is obviously over the past few years there's been a lot of problems with educational institutes determining whether or not people are doing their homework using AI and submitting stuff using AI and then using AI to detect AI effectively. I'm just kind of wondering, how does that work if you're actually studying AI? Because
That's the fun part.
presumably your teachers will want you to use AI to create and submit stuff rather than mark you down for using AI. But yeah, it's a
It
quandary.
depends on
that
the
one.
teacher. We've got a bit of both because the teachers who aren't specialized in AI, like teachers who explain to us how we're supposed to talk during a job interview to be more professional, they don't like the use of AI because they want us to work ourselves. But we study AI, so naturally that's the first thing we want to do.
Yeah.
And then there's the teachers who teach us how to use AIs and how to create AIs. And most of them tell us, well, if you don't use AI, you're going to be very, very slow compared to everyone else. And that's going to be the case in a work job anyway. So might as well use AIs right now. And there's another example that I really enjoyed because I was on the winning end of that stick, was during a test, that we did based on AI in a very specific subject. And the teacher said, yes, so the only thing you're not allowed to do is ask ChatGPT to do the exact project that you're doing right now. And so everyone thought, oh, well, ChatGPT is banned then. So I'm just going to have to code all of it myself, knowing that the exam was too long to code everything yourself. There were too many exercises. Just couldn't do it at our level. And I was the only person to try and give alternate problems to ChatGPT for it to code stuff, because I knew how everything should work and how everything should look like. I just didn't have the time to physically do it myself. And so the teacher said, well done, you were the only one to use ChatGPT because you were allowed to. Everyone else just assumed that you couldn't.
That's
So it does depend on the teachers, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. We've got a few people that's joined us, lots of comments. I think, Martin, your phone might be on as well. It's buzzing in my ear, but I don't know whether you can hear it on your side. So I'll just tell you about that real quick. Oh my gosh, I'm way behind on these comments. All right. So hello, Tatiana. Thank you for joining us. So kind of you to join us today. And Chris as well. Hey, Chris. I'll be seeing you next month on the webinar. Thanks for supporting us with that. That's great. Saeed says, I'm too old for catching up with these new AI tools and models. Back in the day, there was only one. There wasn't even a plural of AI. And that's true, right? I mean, it's changed so quickly. I mean, it's weeks now, and you're getting new tools as well. Tatiana basically says that she can't keep up with all the AI tools. And I think you have to just dip in and out, right? You have to find a tool that works for you and not get bombarded and overwhelmed with all the other tools, because there's always a shiny new tool over here that might do something for you. But I think, like you said, Sam, you're going to be left behind, especially at your age now, and the younger generation is going to be way left behind if they don't start adopting and, more importantly, learning the prompt engineering piece for AI, because AI is only as good as the information that you sort of prompt and get out of it. So anybody can go into ChatGPT and ask it a question, but to really dig in and get the output and the answers that you want takes a little bit more skill than just putting in the odd sentence. What's your sort of view on that in terms of sort of your progression with learning, maybe a little bit more of how to prompt ChatGPT to get the answers that you want, specifically with coding, which is a little bit more complicated than just saying, give me a diet sheet for the next week or something?
I find it relatively easy to do prompts now because I've done a lot of them throughout the last couple of years. But I do realize that for some people it doesn't come intuitively. Like, just a small example, even though it's not incredibly relevant. My younger brother was just introduced to ChatGPT a few weeks back. And so I was behind him and looking at what he was doing with ChatGPT. And the prompt was basically just 3 words. And he wasn't telling ChatGPT what to do exactly. He was just saying, the Titanic sinking, something like that. But there's no context whatsoever, so how's ChatGPT going to know what's going on?
Right.
And a lot of people, even in my class, are like that. They don't explain ChatGPT in proper, English terms what they want.
Yeah.
And so the result is never what they want. And they spend hours and hours trying to get one specific thing, even though with one long explanation, one big prompt, they can get everything they need.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a skill.
And it also depends, It also depends on the AI, because ChatGPT seems to understand very quickly what you want. It's quite intuitive to use.
Mm-hmm.
Some other AIs that aren't developed as well or as much as ChatGPT are slower to respond sometimes.
I think that's a very important thing, though, to learn the prompt engineering piece and to take the time to do it, because in the long run, you could be spending 3 hours trying to get the right answer out of ChatGPT, but if you spend an extra 5 minutes on the prompt, you're done, right? I mean, it's easy for us to say because you understand it and it works for you, but as you said, there's a lot of people who just think they're using it almost as almost like a search engine. And those days have gone, right? It doesn't work like that. It's like talking to somebody else. You wouldn't, if I was to say to you the Titanic sinking, you'd be asking me, well, what are you talking about? What in what context? And you've got to treat it like a person, I think. What's your view, Martin? Did you learn that quickly, or were you like a two sentence person, or were you like a proper prompt person?
I think I learned it very quickly, but the problem here is that Sam's younger brother is cleverer than ChatGPT. No doubt that's what he thinks anyway.
Right.
So he'll put that in and then say, I told you ChatGPT's stupid. I know more than that about the Titanic sinking. So I just think, people need to understand there's a difference between that and Google, and just looking for a very flat result coming back. It's all about the context, which is the main thing that you need to put in, and also being iterative as well. So, multiple times it comes back with something, you give it a bit more information, you say, yeah, I like that, but make it more colourful, make it more compelling, or whatever you want it to do. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm kind of using various different tools, and I think I might take you through a couple of the tools that I'm using and just playing about with at a very simple level. But it's the sort of thing that I'm doing all the time, every day, day in, day out, that cuts down massively on my workflow. So I'm going to quickly run you through 3 tools. Kittle, that I use every day. I use not every day maybe, but Ideogram and Photoshop Beta Generative AI. And the idea is that I'm going to ask the first tool, ideogram to create a logo for the Creator Cafe. So shall we go have a look at that?
Yeah, let me just close the loop on the thing that Sam was talking about real quick, because Tatiana was just mentioning that she was open and clear about use of AI with her students. Integrity and curiosity are not policing them. And I think it's important to encourage people to use it, but they shouldn't be having it as the main sort of workflow for actually creating the content. And last couple of comments. Saeed says, fun fact, in 1966, math teachers protested against the calculator. Goodness me. And last one, 3-word prompts are so March 2025. Saeed, you're so funny. All right, I will give you the Martin's main screen, I think. And I just switched to this, and then you can go on your thing. All right, Martin, take it away with, this is, which one's this verse? Sorry.
So this is ideogram.
Okay.
So I'm going to jump about a little bit between ideogram, Kittle, and Photoshop. So if the screens jump around a little bit, don't worry too much. That's me just minimizing and maximizing things. So this one is ideogram, and basically it's going to let you create images and pretty much anything you want. There's all sorts of different shapes and sizes of images that you can create. So I'm just going to choose a square image for this particular one. And again, you drop in a prompt. I'm going to drop in a very simple prompt, and hopefully I am anyway. Oh, it's not going to let me drop that one in. So I'm just going to tell it what I want to do. I'm going to move my microphone out of the way for a second while I type, because it'll bang into me. So a logo for a live streaming show called Creator Cafe. Where we chat about live streaming and have special guests. So by my standards, that's quite good typing. I've only made one mistake there.
There's no judgment with regards to typing.
I could make a much longer prompt, but let's just go see what it does. So off it goes, and as per most of these things, it will generate several different versions of what we want to see, and I would say this generates things pretty quickly, whereas some of the other tools that I have used tend not to do so. And it gives you a little preview down the bottom, and here we've got some Creator Cafe logos that look remarkably like Neil's Creator Cafe logo that he's already got.
I'll tell you the story behind how I got that logo in a minute, but carry on.
Okay, so I'm going to just add some more text in here.
It's really funny actually, Martin, because one of those logos looks exactly like one that I rejected from the tool that I was using back in the day. But this was like last year, so you know.
So I'm just now going to say make it modern and slick to see whether it creates something just a little bit more different from more different. That's not very good English, I don't think. More different, but
sorry, it's not English
slightly different.
Tonight. Yeah.
So here we've got a few that are a little bit different from what we already had.
All right, I quite like that one actually.
So that was quite good. Will we take that one? Yeah. So I can download that one there as a PNG.
I did like the O as a coffee cup. I never thought about that. You might just find my new logo here. There's nothing worth, a bit of live rebranding.
It might be worth keeping.
Yeah.
So we've got a logo. I guess that would be step number one. A couple of other things that I'm going to play about with. One tool is Kittle. So let's just have a quick look at Kittle while we're on it. And here's something to note, people who look at cameras. If I go back to my previous screen, you'll notice this is in dark mode. Look at my face. Right, I move to the Kittle screen, and you see how my face suddenly lights up because it's a whiter screen.
It's all lit
so
up.
For those of you who are got your screens, put them into dark mode if you can, but not every website is going to let you do that. So this is a very similar product actually, Kittle, so it can do lots of similar jobs to the one that Ideogram does, but I think Ideogram does it better. However, there are a few clever things that this product does which I like, and I'm going to do a sort of mix and match of things between different packages, as I said. So I'm just going to create a new project here, and what I want to do is just going to create a standard square project here. Now I could go and create a logo or various other different items, but in fact I might do this the other way round. I don't know, maybe. Right, so let me show you this. I might do this twice. So I'm going to pretend that in our Creator Cafe what we want to do is create a sort of thumbnail with a guest coming on for Creator Cafe, and that guest is going to be Charlie. But what I think I'm going to do is, I don't want just that round circle of Charlie. I want Charlie to be more of a sort of head and shoulders type shape in my project. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I am going to go into Photoshop and ask it to sort of generate some shoulders, etc. for Charlie here. So let me minimize that one, and we'll be coming back, so it's going to jump about a little bit, but hang on, bear with me. Well, I bring up Photoshop and move to the Photoshop scene. So here we've got Photoshop. So what I'm going to do in Photoshop is much the same as what you've seen me do here. I'm going to create a new scene in Photoshop, and I'm going to tell it I want it to be 1080 by 1080, or it doesn't really matter too much as long as it's square. And what I can then do in Photoshop is I can drop Charlie into Photoshop, and I want him to be a bit smaller than that because I want some sort of head and shoulders on Charlie once we start filling this in, so maybe a little bit bigger, and we'll drop that in there. And then what I can do is zoom in on Charlie here, and I select Charlie, and then in Photoshop what I do is choose under the selection window inverse. Now what that's going to do is going to choose everything except for the area that Charlie's in, because I don't want to regenerate his face. But what I do want to do now is use generative fill, which I shall come up to here, and I'm not going to bother putting in a prompt, because it's pretty obvious I think what I wanted to do. But I could have asked it maybe cut off his head and say put him into a suit, and it would have put him into a suit. But for now what it's going to do no doubt is create a black polo shirt that's a bit bigger. So suddenly we have a pretty good looking picture of really Charlie there, I would say. And it's going to produce 3 images of him. So if you happen to notice that he's a bit slopey shouldered on that one and a bit oddly shouldered on that one, I think I'm going to go for this one here. And again, I can download that, so I'm going to do File and Export to PNG, quick export to PNG, and I'm just going to call that Charlie 4, because I can't even spell Charlie, but that'll do for the moment. So it's now downloaded that from Photoshop for me, and what I'm going to do is go back into Kittle in a bit, and I am going to see what Kittle will do for me in terms of removing the background, because I'm going to bring Charlie back in again to the overall picture a bit later. But for the moment I'm going to create yet another new Photoshop document, and this one's going to be 1920 by 1080, and that's the sort of standard size for a normal web page. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at this Creator Cafe logo that we've got here, and we'll just go maybe bring it in. Quite like it. It's quite good. It's quite a good logo, I think.
Yeah, I quite like it. So you might see it all change next week. So yeah,
we might all change next week.
Just wait and see.
It is quite clever, that the O. But anyway, That's when these tools come into their own and think of stuff that you may not think of.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
What I think I'm going to try and do is blend that in with some other background here as well. So it doesn't always work as well as I'd hope it to, but we're going to try. So we're going to just grab that like that, and what I'm going to do again is select the inverse of that and then ask it to do a generative fill again, and I'm going to say blend with reference image, no straight lines or hard edges.
Just a question for you. Are these tips that you've learned with regards to sort of in your experience with prompting, like things to tell it that you don't want is just as important as what you do want, right?
It's absolutely yes. So it doesn't always do what you want it to do. So the more you tell it, the better. I've just added in a reference image here, and we'll see what it comes up with. So sometimes, even though you tell it no straight edges, it will still create a grey box with some coloured background in it. So we'll just see what it comes up with. So here, what it interestingly has done is, because the image that I dropped in was a generative AI image made up of multiple layers, Photoshop now seems to have decided that it knows what the layers are and it splits them all up. So actually what I'm going to do is replace that image and try a different one, which is a far simpler colour image. I can find one. And we ask it to generate again. And it's created some slightly different backgrounds for me, but you can see how these vary quite dramatically. So maybe that would do for the moment, for our purposes for today. I think that would be doing fine, because all we're going to do really is we're going to drop Charlie in to one side of this image in a minute or two. But that's given us a reasonable background, but I could have asked it to blend in with multiple other ones, and you'll see some quite complicated looking ones that I've done on a lot of our thumbnails, but really they're all doing the same sort of thing. So I'm just going to drop that one. In fact, I'll leave that one where it is for the moment, because we'll come back maybe and drop Charlie into this in a moment or two. So we extended Charlie's body unnaturally, and I'm going to now go back in to have a quick look at my Chrome window again.
Could I ask you a question?
If you remember,
if that's all right.
Far away.
Well, it wasn't from me, it was from Chris. I'll just put it up there. So Chris was asking, I'm not sure if you had experience with this, and it's really small, so let me just move this image. I can't get it to move. It's stuck. Hang on, sorry. Let me just get rid of that. Chris, your comment has gone too small. Okay. All right, I'll bring it in again. So Chris basically asked, I'm not sure if you used this before, do you feel using proper Photoshop for generative fill is better than Adobe Firefly? And I don't know whether you've actually used Adobe Firefly or not, Martin.
I have used Firefly, and its motion versions as well. You can do mini videos on Firefly, which are very frustrating. I would steer away from the video element of Firefly. They only last 5 seconds anyway. But to your question, Chris, the reason I tend not to go into the Photoshop is because it's almost too comprehensive. So if I show you what I'm doing here with this one here, I take this image here and I click on remove background. A few seconds later, what we're going to find out is that I've got a very neatly removed background in here. In Photoshop, you tend to have to go around all sorts of different sliders and things like that to move the background up and down. And it does work, and that's Photoshop Beta I'm talking about rather than Firefly. So maybe Firefly does it equally as good as this, but that's me in 2 seconds got what is a very different, a very easy to use Charlie. And if I come back into Photoshop again, we'll drop Charlie into Photoshop as well, and you'll see what it looks like.
I think Chris was just asking about the generative fill piece, you know, where you extended Charlie out and gave him a different sort of shoulders and things, as opposed to the removal of the background. I don't know whether you've used it for that or tried the differences between them, because I've never used Firefly, so I can't comment on that.
I haven't tried the difference between the two, to be honest. Only so much time in life for a single generative AI tool. So Photoshop Beta is what I choose to use.
Yeah.
The beta, the standard version of the product doesn't do all the generative AI, and the beta version gets changed all the time. So I would, if you're going to use this, stick with the beta version. It seems to do a pretty good job, generally speaking. So if I just bring that back up again. So here was our Creator Cafe image. And I need to go back to the Photoshop layout there. And what we can do now is just bring Charlie back in. And that's what I wanted him, sort of body height. And I think probably quite nicely breaking that image as a simple, easy to use thumbnail in literally a few seconds with a brand new logo on it. I think that works quite well. So thus far so good, but maybe I want to add in a couple of things, maybe, I don't know, a couple of pictures of cameras or a laptop or something like that, because I just want to show you one of the other facilities within Kittle that's going to allow me to do that as well. So back to Kittle for a second or two. So this is my Kittle open again. So if I come to Kittle here, what I can do is ask it to start producing what it calls a sets generator. So I'm going to come to the sets generator. I'm going to come to Charlie here and just get rid of him for the moment. And I can ask it what I want it to produce. A camera, a monitor, I don't know, a microphone, a laptop, indeed whatever I want it to produce. And I can then upload, if I wish to, a styling for this. Now we had our new logo styling in here, so I'm going to see if I can find what I called the new logo, because I can't remember what I actually called it.
Wasn't it something Sylvie
Modern,
Blue or
Modern
something?
and Slick.
Oh, okay.
Modern and Slick it was called. There it is. So I'm going to try uploading that logo as a style. If not, we'll come back and use a different style if this one doesn't work very well, because it was very grey. But it says modern logo. So I'm just going to generate the set here and see what it comes up with. And what it will tend to do is take that reference and then do everything in the style off. So we can already see we've got a camera in the style to fit what I've just created. So let's just quick export that.
So this is one of the things I think you mentioned before, sorry. So because you created the logo in Kittle before, then it's kept that same styling, the colors and it's almost like it's on brand, right? So instead of you having to tell it to recreate something again and hoping that it's going to give you a similar look and feel, it's basically using it in that same blueprint effectively, right?
To a degree, but not quite. So
Okay.
I didn't create the logo in Kittle. I created the logo in Ideogram.
Oh, right. Sorry.
So because Ideogram's better at creating the logo. But I then uploaded the logo as a reference image
Right.
into Kittle. So almost correct.
All right, got it now. Okay. So as long as you've got a reference image that you put into Kittle from anywhere that you created, you can then pretty much get it to have a same or a similar look and feel from a brand perspective.
Correct.
Okay.
So now I've just downloaded those images. We're going to have a look and decide which ones we want to use within the Photoshop version. So back over to the Photoshop window. So here's our Photoshop window, and there was a few of those in there that I felt looked quite smart. Of course, that will rely on me storing them in the right place, because I think I probably just saved them all to a different area of my drive. Okay, search.
Speaking of drive, Saeed was asking, how is my hard drive behaving today? Very well, because I've cleaned out most of the stuff that I had on it, so we should be okay. I'll let you know in 10 minutes.
So bear with me, folks, while I try and find where I did save those.
Yeah, no worries. That's always the problem, I think, with when you're designing stuff and things. There's so many files everywhere. Do you have a workflow, Sam, for keeping your stuff organized? Are you a folder person? Do you keep everything sort of neat on your machine, or is it all over the place?
I try to keep it neat. Yeah, I have hundreds of folders.
Oh, okay. Hundreds of folders. Right.
Yeah, I have like a folder for all of my coding projects, and then a folder for all of my school lessons that all separated in years and then in subjects.
Wow.
So that I can really try and keep stuff organized, because then it's hell to try and find that one little PNG file that you just downloaded, and it's somewhere in your machine. And yeah, with Windows it takes a few minutes to try and search it throughout a few folders. Yeah.
And of course, as a coder, you're probably doing lots of version control as well, right? Because you've got different versions of your code that you're creating. So you've got to keep a record of that as well, because as you know, one piece of code could break something, and then you have to go back and try and work out what the deal was.
That stuff I'm still really bad at, because some people are good at organizing and saying, oh, this is the first, second, third version, like 1.0, 1.1, 1.2. For me, it's more of the kind of, this is the project. This is the final version. This is the real final version. Okay. And then it goes on and on and on.
The real
and
final
it's hectic.
Version. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, oh dear. Okay. Well, maybe that's something you can take away and maybe get better at.
Probably. Yeah.
Did you find your elusive file, Martin?
Still, do you know, believe it or not, I'm still looking. I don't know what I've done with them.
Yeah, I'm glad to have found Kittle thanks to Martin, because before then I was using it's called Deep AI to generate images, which is still quite good, and it's perfectly free.
Deep AI, okay.
Yeah, I just found it completely randomly, but it works quite well. And then usually I was using it to make logos or use Canva to do that. But yeah, to make logos and pictures, or even 2D pictures of, I don't know, a house to put in a game that we're doing for a lesson. And then we wanted it in a PNG format, and for some reason a lot of generative AI websites for pictures don't want to do PNGs. They always try to put background.
Oh, really? Okay, you mean transparent PNGs then? So they're all...
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so then you had to bring it to... Well, what I used a lot is Remove BG to get the background off.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the paid-for version of that, it will always downscale what you have. And so instead of having, 800 by 800 pixels, it will downgrade to 400 by 400. And then maybe the detouring is not perfect here. I put it into GIMP because I didn't have Photoshop to then do the outline by hand.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So this is a lot quicker to do.
Yeah.
Even when you use your files.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is come back to me while I look for those files. I'll go back on full screen. Come back to me at the end of the show while I mock up this a little bit better, so that it looks good.
No worries.
With our new newfound graphics from Kittle as well. So I'll come back to that when I discover where I've put all of these.
Okay, you go back to full screen then if you want,
Okay.
and I'll go back to 3up.
Okay.
Time is flying. Saeed, thank you so much for the super chat. I must get a ping or something or balloons or something, because you're the second person to ever give me a super chat. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And Saeed was also saying an old Arabic proverb says a computer will do what you tell it to do, not necessarily what you want it to do. That's very good. Well, we've only got 10 minutes. So what I was thinking is maybe we could have part 2 of this next week, where I go through other tools, because I wanted to cover NotebookLM. I wanted to look at Descript, and I also wanted to talk about Claude and some other things. But I'm going to ask the audience real quick. We haven't got any Streamer Live stuff going on, but just pop in the chat. What are your favorite AI tools? You can list them all. You can give me your top 3, your top 2, just one. Do you use AI at all? Are you trying to avoid it, like the Terminator plague that it will be? Or are you going to embrace it fully and use every single AI tool available? I have to say that the one that I like basically is Claude is what I use. As I mentioned before, I think Claude is best for me for writing, but I know Sam's all in on ChatGPT, Martin's GPT and other things. But with so many coming out every day, it's crazy. So anyway, put in what you want to, what you do about your AI tools. And James has basically said, definitely want to hear your breakdown on Descript. Yes, I'll do that next week, because, and I know Chris is on the call as well, and Chris is the Descript guy. He knows and uses Descript far more than I do. But Chris, I'd love to know your thoughts real quick about the changing UI of Descript, because they seem to be changing it every month now. I mean, they're adding new features, which is great. I do have a little bit of an issue still with some of the Descript workflows where they can be a little bit clunky. Do you use the app? Do you use the web UI version? I've stayed away from the app completely now. Maybe that is half of my problem, but I'm all in on using Descript in the web version, because I think it's easier in terms of, especially when you're exporting files and you can do, cloud to cloud. So if I want to export them straight to YouTube, I can. It's in the cloud. If I want to go to Google Drive, it's in the cloud. I don't have to keep uploading and downloading all the time. So Chris has mentioned that he uses Claude, Gamma, Descript, Magai, Fathom, and CastMagic. I've not heard of Fathom, but the others I have. Maybe we'll have to get Chris back on the show and talk about AI as well, because, Chris is using a lot of different AI things. Chris, if you'd be up for that, let us know, because we'd love to have you on the show and talk about maybe 1 or 2, 3 or 4 of those. In fact, you could have your own show just on AI and just join us. That would be fun as well. Anybody else who uses AI, I'd be interested to know. And Saeed says, these sound like members of the K-pop band. Maybe they were taken from that. I don't know. Saeed, you just make me laugh all the time. Wonderful.
We do a dance out at the end.
Well, you're on your own there, but you haven't seen me dance. So we'll let after a couple of G&Ts, I'll be up for it, but not right now. Did you find your file, Martin, or are you still struggling? Or are you just going to give this up today?
I might be giving this one up today.
That's fine.
However, I suppose what I could do is just pretend that I am actually on our new scene.
Okay.
And you put that on the 3up if you want to.
Okay, I'll put it on the 3up. There you go. There it is. There's a brand new logo.
And,
perfect.
We can have a little logo in the corner of the new screen, or I guess I could put it up on I could put it up on your corner of the screen, but that's not going to work from here.
Wonderful. So Chris basically says the web version of Descript is more reliable. It seems that any updates they make take longer in the native Descript app. That's an interesting point. And why is that message so small? Oh dear. Not to keep changing this all the time. Oh, there was a simpler way of doing that. So he says, did you find your file is the new Can You See My Screen? Hopefully not, when we're not on those Zoom calls. Yeah. That's funny. It's funny. Oh dear. I think we definitely need a couple more people to come on and explain what they do in their AI workflow, because right now it just seems to be a big part of everybody's creative journey, right? I don't think there's any. I will stick my neck out here and say that there's very little people now who are not using one element of AI, especially if you're a creator, because you'd be crazy not to, in terms of cutting down the amount of overhead and time it takes to do certain things, even if it's just coming up with YouTube descriptions and titles for your videos, which is, something that it's really good at. As we're coming up to the top of the hour, any sort of closing thoughts and comments from either of our guests here?
I think, spend an hour a day looking at AI would be my tip. Just spend an hour a day looking at it, because the following week you will get that hour back 3, 4, 5, 6 over if you just play about with AI an hour a day. The return on investment time-wise is huge. You would be mad not to, really.
Yeah. And Sam, for you, from your experience as a young person, maybe talking to other young people in the field who are maybe not embracing AI. I mean, the people that you work with and the people that you deal with in your classes and stuff, everybody's all in, obviously, because it's the subject that you're dealing with. But what about maybe your other friends and people like that? Are they using it a lot, or do they just think it's some sort of new thing that you can just play with for now?
Some people like to use it quite a lot. Some people think it's the work of the devil. Completely depends on the perspective and what you study.
Right.
I'd have said try and treat the AI that you're working with as a friend or as a colleague, because usually, for example, when I use ChatGPT, I treat it as if he were somebody I was working on a project with.
Right.
I don't want to be really rude to that person, because who knows, he might become the next Terminator.
Well, yeah,
if you're nice to that AI, there might be a chance you'll survive.
Be kind to the AI. You never know if it's coming for you.
Yeah.
A couple of last quick comments from Chris. So Chris mentions that once a week he goes into Descript changelog to have a look at their new updates. And yeah, and I will show you next week. So the new agent, the Underlord as they call it, not the Overlord, they call it Underlord, which is Descript's AI component. Basically, you can actually now prompt it to do things from a video perspective. So say, put B-roll here, add a background music, cut out all my ums and ahs, reframe or reshape this for vertical content. You give it prompts to a video file in Descript, and 9 times out of 10, it does it for you. It does take a couple of attempts, as Chris mentioned, maybe 3 or 4 goes in order to do that. But that's an interesting workflow whereby taking the heat out of learning the tool in terms of traditional editing workflows and just using natural language to prompt the tool to edit the file for you. And I think it's a great step forward. It's not there yet. I've used it a little bit, and it is a bit frustrating because it does put things in the wrong place. But at least it gives you almost like a wireframe, for want of a better term, of an initial edit where you can then go in and finesse it later. And it does cut down a lot of time. I do like that idea. Last thing, he says that Fathom is a Zoom meeting note taker. Right, that just works better for me. So it works better than the actual Zoom built-in, what's it called, AI assistant. That's interesting. Yeah, I've never used Fathom, but then again, I don't really use a lot of Zoom AI sort of meeting things as well. Have you used that in the past, Martin, when it was first introduced for taking notes and things?
Yeah, the summary works quite well actually, but
right.
I suppose that was quite some time ago, and I don't think there were many alternatives. So I was just very impressed that I could get a summary and not need to attend a boring meeting, which is what, we're now starting to get meetings where there are more note-taking bots in it than there are people. So, and that's exactly why they don't want to sit through the 1-hour meeting when the point was made 58 minutes into the meeting and the rest was garbage for them. So
exactly. Yeah. Right. Well, before we go, I just want to say that we have a webinar going on tomorrow, our first in our series of monthly webinars. And if you just go to golivenow.academy.com or scan the QR code, don't click on it, scan it, then that'll take you to the booking page. These webinars are free. Tomorrow we've got Alec Johnson and Scott, and I'm not going to mispronounce his name, so I'll let Martin pronounce his name correctly for me, who's coming on tomorrow to talk about all LinkedIn and basically what is video now as your new business card. So how to sort of stand up, be present with video and sort of be there. It's Skeebel. I always get his name mixed up. Skeebel, right. Let's get that right for tomorrow. So we've got Scott Skeebel and Alec Johnson on the show tomorrow on the webinar. It's 12 o'clock noon UK time, 7 a.m. Eastern, and I think 7 p.m. Thailand time. So come and join us. It'll be fun. And we've got Chris on the webinar in a month's time as well. But I just wanted to say, first of all, Sam, it's been a pleasure to have you with us for the last 2 months. I hope you've enjoyed yourself as much as we've having you with us. And thank you so much for all the help and work that you've done for us over the last couple of months. And I really do hope things work out well for you in your AI journey. Any last closing thoughts, points from either of you?
I'd have just said, thank you for taking me in for the internship. It was nice.
Very welcome.
Good. Glad you enjoyed it. And you still got one more day to go, so you got work tomorrow because we've got to you got to jump on and pretend to be Alec and Scott while we do a run through of the show prior to going live. So hopefully it'll go better, and if I'm saving any files, then I'll remember where I put them and organised a little bit more. I don't know, just organise.
There's nothing wrong with that. Chris, looking forward to speaking with you soon too. Anyway, we'll see you all tomorrow, those of you who are registered and so on, and there's still time and there's lots of spaces available. So come on, join us. It'll be a fun show tomorrow. And with that, we'll say good night and we'll see you tomorrow. Take it easy. Bye.
Cheerio, folks.
Yeah.